Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business Boost, the Microsoft 365 Business Boost podcast. I am your host, Thurman Trotman, and I'm here with Nick DeCourcy.
Hi, Thurman.
What is going on? Nick, I want to get right down to it. Recently, there was a new release. Well, actually, there's been a few releases for SharePoint. Some really good stuff that I'm really enjoying. We talked about it briefly last episode. Just all the really good SharePoint updates. But currently, there is one right now, flexible layouts, which or at least I know I saw this sometime last year. I remember when they first demoed it. I forgot who it was that demoed it, but they demoed it and then showed, hey, look, you'll have this, pretty much when you're making a SharePoint page, you won't be restricted to our sections that we have on the page right now. You can put anything you want anywhere. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I just left it alone. I just moved on because I wasn't particularly interested in that update. It didn't really do much.
It's kind of like turning SharePoint into like Squarespace or something, right?
It is.
So that kind of thinking about design of a page.
So, moved on. But now recently, the update is actually here. It's now out. The community is talking about it, and they seem to be very excited about it. And I wanted to ask you if you shared that same excitement about flexible layouts.
Well, I think, I really am not the SharePoint guy in this in this podcast, am I? So. I think it's a little unfair to put it on me first, but we can do that.
We don't. Okay, we don't have to go to you.
You want to give your opinion first, and then I'll give
my opinion. I'd be very happy to give my opinion.
Because people, when we're talking about SharePoint, people really want to know what Mr. SharePoint thinks about it. They don't care what Nick DeCourcy thinks about it because I don't know anything about SharePoint.
Okay. So I'll take that. I guess it only makes sense that the guy who is calling himself Mr. SharePoint talks about it first. So I will say, I need to preface this by saying, I think I take a very practical look at the tool that I use and love, which is SharePoint.
Yeah.
And the way that I see things get debuted, the way that I see things get published, updated, whatever, the features as they come out, I never am thinking, ooh, how can I use this? Because even though I'm a user of SharePoint, I'm a different kind of user. Like I'm a user that's been using it for a billion years. I actually use it for my business. All of my stuff for my business can be found on my business SharePoint site.
You purposefully say, sorry to interrupt, but you purposefully would say you are not an early adopter. You go out of your way to be talking about and focusing on features that are solid in the product, and once you're confident to go talk about them, then you will do. But you're not trying to be this is the bleeding edge, exciting stuff in SharePoint all the time when you're talking to your clients, are you?
Yeah, not at all. That's not my lane. That's not my thing. I don't do that. That's just again, not my thing. If that's your thing, if you're watching this and you're one of those people who do that, two thumbs up to you. You know what I'm saying? But because there's a need for that. There's absolutely a need for that. But what I do, the way that I see it is, one, to your point, I like when things have been in there for a while. They've been proven. It's a solid feature. It's now in use. Number two, actually before that, instead of thinking ooh, how can I use this? I'm always, ooh, how can my client use this? How will this help them? That's how I think, because it's not really about me. You know what I'm saying? I don't see this situation. I don't see this tool, as much as I love it. It's not about me. The reason why I love it so much is because it helps me to do something that I love to do even more, which is help people. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw the flexible layout, I thought, okay, not for me, but I could see, but someone else could probably find the good use for this, is what I was thinking. And here's what I think the issue is. It's a Microsoft issue. Because Microsoft doesn't know who they're pushing SharePoint to. They might think, I believe that they think that they're pushing SharePoint to SharePoint developers. That's probably the primary person that they make these releases for, because you know what SharePoint is. You know how you can use SharePoint. You're a SharePoint developer. We're releasing new features for the tool. You're primarily the person who needs to know about it, a SharePoint developer. But a SharePoint developer is just that, a SharePoint developer. They're not a designer. And I don't get this leaning into design when you're pushing something to developers. You mentioned Squarespace. If you were running a website business and saying, hey, I create websites for people, and your number one tool was Squarespace, I'm willing to bet that you are a designer. You know how to get inside of Squarespace and make it look good, and then turn it over to your client and them say, ooh, I got me a nice new Squarespace site. This is great. Because your domain, your thing, your expertise is design. Whatever angle you attack it at, your thing is design. You know how to make things look good. That is not my world. And SharePoint developers, that's not their world either. We lean towards making things work, but we don't have an expertise in making things look good. Microsoft can help us out, and we can go take some help from other graphic folks, which is what I do. I get input from people who know how to design things to get better designs. But we're developers, you know what I'm saying? We're not designers. So I don't understand the need for a flexible layout feature.
Yeah, because it's like flexible sections, right? So you have been locked into like a column here and a column here and a column here, and now you can just like move things around. It's not to do with UI insofar as like making the app work better. It's to do with visual design. When you're saying design, you're not talking about like making the app more usable or making the site more usable. You're talking about design from the point of view of prettification of it, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Let's go with prettification. You know what I'm saying? Because and for design, I know the designers will say that design absolutely influences usefulness. It does, but the primary purpose of the design is to, the aesthetic is the prettification. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my one reason, is that I don't know who Microsoft is talking to when they make these updates. I imagine it has to be developers, but developers are not designers. Number two, the other reason that I think this is not my thing necessarily just yet is because where we are now with SharePoint sites and what you can do is top. It is great. You know what I'm saying? Like those sections and web parts within the sections accomplish so much. Like you can get so much done with these out of the box features, if you know them, from SharePoint to accomplish something for the customer. It's excellent. They do well. Section backgrounds made things look even better. Like these things are great the way they are. I don't really see the powerful impact that flexible sections can make on that. I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but I will talk about later if we got time, the editorial cards. But what say you, Nick?
Well, I think, I kind of struggle. I think I've talked about it before with this idea of like, what is this tool for, right? And I know, like, if you think of it broadly, even when Microsoft talks about SharePoint, I think they talk about, like, this is the number of files that we are storing in SharePoint will get added every day. They don't talk about it in terms of this is the number of page views we get, like a website does. So even when they're talking about those stats, and maybe I missed it, maybe they do talk about that as well, but certainly what I've heard is more to do with the thinking of SharePoint is your filing cabinets, for want of a better word, for the digital age, with a UI on top of it that allows you to access that information and know where that information is stored. and increasingly pushing towards this is an internally facing website provides a set of tools that maybe allow you to do certain things, but also maybe increase the pressure to do those things and to focus on the stuff that isn't what that tool is necessarily for. Like, I think having limitations like within a product can guide you towards how it's going to be used, right? Necessarily, it's going to guide you towards how it's going to be used. And like, these are all the benefits that you get from having SharePoint, but you can't design a site like you would in Squarespace. So the CEO says, okay, well, let's put all of our files in Squarespace instead, because I really want it to look pretty. And then there's a whole list of reasons that's like 10 times the length of why you shouldn't do that, right? And so in the end, the right answer is, okay, we're going to put all of our files in SharePoint and we'll work with how it looks. Right. And that's good enough for us because that's the right answer. And I just struggle with this pushing features in every direction. Because it's almost like, do you have a clear idea as to what the key value of this product is to the organizations that you're selling it to, or are using it? Or is it just a matter of, well, there are some people who want to do this and there are some people who want to do that, and we don't care, so we're just going to try to please everyone. And that concerns me a bit. I mean, we're in the age of co-pilots, right? This is the age of the co-pilots. So what's going to be increasingly important if this vision of co-pilot and agents and so on and so forth, the UI for AI, etc., if this goes in the direction that Microsoft is pushing it, is not what does your page look like for humans to consume it, but how good is the data for AI to consume it? In the future, are you really going to be worried about what your intranet homepage looks like? Because are people actually going to be going to the intranet homepage to find information, or are they going to be chatting with their agent? Maybe even with voice, maybe even on video. Maybe they're just going to be doing it in Teams to get that information. Maybe that information is just going to be shared with them proactively based on what they're working on. Hey, I see that you scheduled some time off on your calendar. It doesn't look like you've actually submitted your request for that time off yet. Do you want me to send you the link as how you can do it? Like, that's a possibility with these tools. And none of that is related to what does your intranet site look like. So yeah. I just wonder, is it the right thing? Is it the right focus at the right time for everything else that's going on in the ecosystem?
Yeah, and the thing about what you're saying is not like there's an industry push towards agents and then there's Microsoft. Literally within the Microsoft suite, they are offering that and they're leading with that.
Yeah. They're
leading with agents is the future. You know what I'm saying? So I agree. The thing about it is the other day there was an update to Planner. Planner now has the ability to essentially, it looks like folders, which is create portfolios. I think this is a good update. They call them portfolios, but they look like folders, and it's where like you keep any and everything for your Planner board inside of that portfolio. It's a good update. But at the same time, they still haven't fixed this recycle bin situation where Planner does not have a recycle bin, which to me makes it high risk to use it in a team environment. If you use it by yourself, obviously it's only you, so it's less risk of deleting a card by accident or something. But if you use it in a team environment, multiple people, you run the risk of it being deleted by somebody and no trace of it ever.
Yeah.
This is how I feel about SharePoint. The thing about what they do is like you'll update the flexible layout. And you knew you were going to do this since last year. It's been on the board. But you also know you've been pushing agents. The entire organization is leading with agents. Why are we not making it what I complained about a few episodes ago? Why are we not like leaning into having agents be able to read SharePoint lists? versus just documents. As I go out there and I tell people lists are better than your documents, then I would love for me to be able to say also, and guess what? Now you can start using these agents to run through your data to start, helping you do work better. So I would much rather see that kind of update instead of a flexible section update. And maybe the flexible section is like easier to do, but I'm like, man, kill that. Put all your resources towards thinking about what you just said, Nick, which is like where we're going. I think it's far off. I think it's going to be a while before we literally get away from using websites, let alone internal websites. It's going to be a while, but the push is there to where that interface, that new layer, I think the CEO of Microsoft was saying something like this, that layer where we interact with the GUIs of the world, like the websites and the way these apps look,
that might disappear.
Right. That's your new layer might be a robot.
In time. I mean, let me ask you this, Thurman. I mean, back in the day, we used to get an annual or biannual update to a product, and you understood that update contained X features that were directly related to that product. And some of what you're expressing frustration with, in my mind, is the fact that we've shifted to this SaaS model where features just keep rolling. And we have no idea where, well, I guess we could find out. We could probably look at the roadmap and work it out. But I have no idea off the top of my head where flexible sections got on the roadmap in terms of the run up to delivery to be delivered versus agents got on the roadmap. I know that they probably didn't get on the roadmap until sometime last year, right? So we know that time. So maybe there are 3 people working on flexible sections and they've been working really hard. Maybe there were 60 to start off with. Maybe everyone pushed over to Copilot and 3 continued on working with flexible sections. And now they've got their product out, or their part of the product out. But because everything is in this constant cycle of release after release, we don't see it like that. Like if we were looking at this and this was part of SharePoint 2025, or even, this was SharePoint Online 2025, all of these features, this is the list of features we're going to see in, March of 2025. And then alongside it, we got the list of features for, Copilot Agents 2025 with the list of things that are going to appear in April. This would be more palatable. It would be more understandable. And part of the frustration and part of the misunderstanding is just the way these release cycles happen, in that it's just ongoing. It's one thing after the other, and those things don't appear to relate to each other. And it may just be they don't relate to each other because all of all of the teams at Microsoft are on this constant treadmill of develop and get it out, develop and get it out, develop and get it out, instead of just working towards this is the date we're shipping.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I'm like, I've been using SharePoint for a really long time. And there are some things that have been around for a long time that's like, bro, why are we doing this? Why are we still doing this? If this was a small effort out of some city somewhere that they've been working really hard and pushing new features, different story. Actually, it might be a better story if their only product was SharePoint. But this is Microsoft, big, ginormous Microsoft. There's no way that you don't know you need a recycle bin in Planner. There's no way that you don't know you need agents to comb through these lists. There's no way you don't know a calculated column in a SharePoint list should be able to have a total on it. Like, these are basic things, and it's frustrating because of how big, powerful, and valuable Microsoft is. But these little things that I'm looking for, they don't do. Meanwhile, again, I don't want to sound like I'm saying the flexible sections are stupid. I'm just not that excited about it. You know what I'm saying? I know the community is excited about that and some other features, but that one in particular, I'm just like, it's fine. It's whatever. I could have did without it. You know what I mean? But yeah, the more important thing is just like, how can I use this to support my customer? And I get really excited about stuff like that. And right now, obviously the next big one is going to be using agents with lists. Using agents right now is pretty exciting, but documents is not my thing. I know clients use documents heavily, but I'm getting there. As far as like really leaning into using documents with your agents and then using that to level up.
Yeah, I mean, now, any organization is going to have some documents, and it's just a matter of where do you throw them. And the right place to throw them is in SharePoint, and then if you could transition to a list or to Dataverse or whatever, that's great. I agree with you on the whole agents and lists thing. I'm not aware that there's any timeline that has been given for rectifying that. I'm not aware that that's a feature that has been communicated as this is in the works at this point. However, the thing is, like if you think about all of these features that you see, things like the sections and so on and so forth, they do go through a process of obviously Microsoft is building them, Microsoft is getting feedback on them, then iterating based on that feedback and then going through and delivering something. Now, not everyone can be involved in all of those pieces of feedback. Like sometimes that feedback process is with smaller groups or private previews and so on and so forth. And I think part of that is probably making it manageable. If you just opened the floodgates to how many users are there of something like Teams or something like that, Microsoft 365, it's getting close to 1 billion, right? It's a lot of seats that they've got. If you just opened the floodgates and said to 1 billion people, just give us all of your feedback and we'll work with that list and prioritize, it would be utterly unmanageable to be like, okay, well, we're going to deliver this for everyone, right? You can't deliver everyone's top priority. So I think the problem is that because this is rather opaque, there's a lot of criticism that gets leveled at Microsoft when the update is the thing that you don't want. And then we give a lot of praise when the update is the thing that you do want. But different people sit in those different shoes at different times, depending on what their personal take on what Microsoft 365 is and how it should work is. So it's true. It's interesting. And then people like us consulting with businesses are sitting in this kind of interesting middle ground of we get to not only give our feedback to Microsoft as users of the software, but we also get to give our feedback to our clients on what we believe is the ideal way of using these technologies based on what we see coming from Microsoft. So our take is kind of a third one that doesn't fit in either of those camps either. So I can imagine that if you're sitting at Microsoft or at Google or any of these companies and you're trying to manage this process of how the heck do we keep all these customers happy? Like, it must be a very difficult job to even, whatever you do, there's going to be some people who are happy, some people who are unhappy, and a whole bunch of people who could benefit from it who don't even care. And that's probably the hardest part of it.
I mean, you're right. I like to propose a different category where being in the SharePoint community, you hear a lot of the same things. If you've been around long enough, you hear some of the same things. Not once have I ever heard somebody say, "Hey, we need some flexible sections or some flexible layouts on these pages." Never heard nobody say that. But the other ones that I've mentioned, maybe not the agents, because that's pretty new. Other people have mentioned this before a lot. And you could go online and see these forums and see people submitting things. They've mentioned them because it's like, bro, please just make the update. And why are we not doing this? But to your point, I get it. Totally get it. I'll never, ever negatively speak about anything that anybody's doing that is productive. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? People coming at you in all angles and you got those 3 categories you just talked about. All of that, I totally get it. But I will, from my position, speak as a person who has to support clients with this tool and say, I'm never even going to bring this up to them. Like, this isn't even a thing I'm going to say. It doesn't move the needle.
Because it doesn't sit within your way of thinking about this tool. You know what would be really interesting, and maybe this is something that we could try to get worked out for a future episode, is it would be really interesting to try to get someone from one of the teams that we work with at Microsoft who actually gets involved in translating this feedback into, like, why do they plan to do these things? Like, understanding that, because I do think it's a bit opaque. Like, we see a lot from Microsoft in terms of, helping to support the product. We see a lot from Microsoft in terms of rolling out products. But that bit in the middle as to why do the things that people have got problems with turn into resolutions and new features on the other side, it's a little bit opaque. So I think it would be really helpful to a lot of people to shine a bit of light on that aspect of it. What do you think?
I'd love to.
So if that's what you do at Microsoft and you're watching this, then please do reach out to say you'd like to come and have a conversation. Or if you wouldn't like to have a conversation about that, then don't reach out. That's okay as well. But we would, because I've already said that whatever you do, you're probably not going to get it right. So that's probably not the best foundation to start on. But yeah, if you're brave enough to have that conversation, then we're happy to have you.
Good deal. All right, well, Nick, listen, before we get out of here, because I think we've driven the point home here. Before we go, do you have anything you want to share with the audience?
Well, the same things as usual. So go.
What you got?
Go look at my LinkedIn. You're on YouTube, so you're watching this. So make sure you like and subscribe. And I have some courses.
You are more active. You've been more active here on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you told me that I wasn't doing a good job with LinkedIn, so I decided, I'm disappointing Thurman. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go and do a better job with LinkedIn. So I've been trying to link in with as many people as possible. So we'll see how that goes. What about you? What do you need to tell people?
Just go to SharePointFreebie.com. I don't mention that enough here. And that's where, if you would like to see how you can start the process of getting rid of spreadsheets and instead using SharePoint lists, go to SharePointFreebie.com. That's your first step. And join us. Learn the difference between doing work with a spreadsheet and instead leveling up doing work with lists. That's all I got, Nick. I guess we will see you folks here back at another 2 weeks.
Another 2 weeks.
Make sure that you subscribe. If you are not subscribed, make sure that you share these episodes with people who would find it valuable. And if you do that already, thank you. We appreciate it.